You've reached the Signal Watch, movies, television, comics, and more. I'm your host, Ryan Steens. Join me and our cadre of co-contributors as we examine cultural artifacts of the 20th century, boldly explore the 21st, and try to put it all in perspective. Stay tuned. We're gonna try to make this work. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Signal Watch. This is our first shot entirely on location outside episode. I am here with
Justin Lincoln,
and we are discussing
Meatballs.
Meatballs from 1979, I think.
Yeah, I thought it was I thought it was early 80s, but I mean, we had mentioned that it felt very like the 70s influence was there, and I think the style, but I had not quite realized that it was very, very, very late 70s and not early 80s.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's funny about, you know, in an era kind of before the internet and everything else, was I think fashion trends and all that took a couple years to track to the heart of Texas, and so we were always like a couple years behind, or a year or two behind, where so by the time a movie came out, we'd have been like, yeah, we're totally in style. So I'd never seen this one, and this is for you, a Canon movie.
It is. I, without a doubt, grew up watching this movie, quoting it with my brother and parents as well, and this is one of those that I'm always a little surprised that is not ingrained in the personality of people around about my age that I meet. I was talking with my wife a little earlier in the evening, and she commented like, oh yeah. I mean, I've seen it, I don't really remember it, and I was shocked that this is not a film you quote every day. But apparently it's not. And that's fine.
You also have an older brother, too.
I do.
Yeah.
My brother Jason is 4 years older.
My brother Jason is 2 years older.
Excellent. What?
Yeah, so but I would think that might have something to do with why you saw it and I didn't. Because of the little, you know, when you're a kid, that 4 years can make I mean, I was 4 years old when this came out. I wasn't going to have seen this movie upon its theatrical release.
No.
When we didn't have a VCR until 1983.
Yeah.
We didn't have a VCR until 1985. So this thing had been, what I do remember is this movie was at every mom and pop video store in the comedy section. And that included then when Blockbuster opened, it was at every Blockbuster. But there was always just a whole fleet of movies that were at every video store that I just walked past and I never rented. I do remember going, oh, this has Bill Murray in it. But then honestly dismissing it because I assumed, and we'll get into this was another horny camp adventure movie, which it kind of is.
Yeah.
But it's not, it's definitely safe for like middle school kids for sure, if not younger.
Yeah. I think that in my memory, I remember it being a little hornier, a little bawdier than it actually is. I mean, it's rated PG. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you are Rudy Gurner age and above, you appreciate this movie. Like, I think you can watch it. I think if you're younger, it's going to miss in a lot of regards, and I don't really know if I remember what age I was when I saw it, but I definitely remember, I guess, kind of identifying most, perhaps, with Rudy.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, that absolutely makes sense. I mean, the movie kind of has two POV characters, and he and Bill Murray, but Bill Murray is really he's Bill Murray.
Oh yeah. And this for me is kind of like the quintessential Bill Murray. I mean, really, even more than Ghostbusters. His work on Saturday Night Live, I think, was too early for me. I mean, Ghostbusters would have come later. This was kind of the I don't have an opinion, I'm going to watch what's given to me sort of phase. So this was, I mean, this is my Bill Murray, so to speak. I mean, it's
an interesting midpoint between what he was doing in Saturday Night Live and then when Ivan Reitman directed this movie, just kind of let him cut loose. And clearly, a lot of it was improvised.
Yeah, it really feels that way.
Which was unusual, of course, in an era where your cost of your movie is film. You're not just recording stuff to hard drives. So, yeah, it's kind of amazing actually to see that the movie ends up getting this like really lazy summer feel because there's kind of a plot. But it's really just tracking all of these people, and there's different groups. You don't really focus on the kids much other than Rudy. It's really focused on the counselors in training as they kind of proceed throughout the summer. And I think it's a movie that informs, it's where Hot, Wet American Summer came from.
Oh, yeah.
So, and a million things after this.
Yeah, it really, it feels like this is very much the genesis of the summer camp movie, and everything after it seems to have, within varying degrees, tried to be more than it. Like, let's make it like a little dirtier, a little hornier, a little like more extreme with the comedy. But I think where this thing really works is that it's a really gentle movie. I mean, even for 79, a couple of scenes aside, the politics, if you will, are pretty modern.
Yeah.
I thought. I mean, there's nobody who's really, I mean, to a degree, all the characters are treated pretty equally.
Yeah.
I felt like. I mean, there's, like, the babes in the movie and kind of the nerds in the movie, but nobody is dismissed.
They also don't bully necessarily the nerds.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, there's Spaz and let's give him a wedgie as we walk by. That role is left for the rich camp down the road. And this may be the genesis of the rich camp down the road. I don't really know.
Yeah, and even growing up, like, Spaz is clearly Spaz. I mean, I'd never really heard the term spaz before this movie. And the term spaz, if you call somebody a spaz, it carries a connotation, but spaz in this movie, I never felt was lesser than anybody else.
I mean, I think they entertain who he is. Like, he's part of who this group is. You can kind of expect certain things from the guy. Don't expect much and everyone will be happy. It's like he and Fink are running around together, kind of. And so did you go to summer camp ever growing up?
I have never been to summer camp. I've never been to overnight camp.
We're going to set one up in your backyard, and I'm going to run it.
Yeah, when we were watching it tonight, I was like, I'll be damn well sure that Sydney's going to go to a summer camp, like an overnight summer camp. It seems like a lot of fun, but whether it be, I grew up exclusively in Central Texas, where it was incredibly hot during the summer and nobody wanted to live in a plywood cabin for the month, or it was just not within the means of the Lincoln family growing up. But yeah, I definitely never went to summer camp.
That's weird, because your dad would light cigars with $100 bills, is my memory.
Yeah, I mean...
While he was doffing his top hat.
This is true. I mean, I was trying to think, is there anything greater than a $100 bill? I was going to say, when that bill was not available, hundreds would suffice.
Right. So I did go to camp in Central Texas, and but it was always only a week. We grew up Lutheran and would go to Lutheran summer camp out in Fredericksburg. The cabins looked, and I also went to Camp Pine Cove, which is kind of a chain now across Texas. But the cabins at both places looked essentially just like what you saw.
Okay.
No air conditioning in Central Texas in like July. But you're a kid. You just stink and you don't care. Yeah. You eat popsicles and drink a ton of water, and that's how you get by. And you pass out at like 9 o'clock. But yeah, it's and you could always tell stuff was going on with the counselors. And eventually, towards the end of the week, they'd be like, yeah, so and so, Jenny and Steve are dating or whatever. You'd be like, yeah, okay, that tracks. And I did that from 4th grade through, I want to say 9th grade, 8 and maybe before 9th grade. I don't think I went again after 9th grade. Pretty much every summer was a week of, pulling ticks off yourself. And, but I think this movie reflects kind of more of a tradition that I know is kind of a upper middle class to upper class thing that happens, especially out in New York. They send all the kids out to the mountains for the summer.
Yeah, it definitely has a northeast feel to it. Funny enough, I was trying to find some like Chicago-based beers for us to drink while we were watching the movie, but I had zero success, which kind of surprised me a little. But there's
in Chicago, man.
Yeah. There's a comment in, I think, kind of the opening scene of the temperature in June or July being upper 40s or something like that, which is absolutely unfathomable for us.
Yeah, we're hitting a low of like 80 at like 3 in the morning here right now. So,
yeah.
But yeah, this was actually filmed, I believe, in Alberta or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. And really kind of watching it this time more for the podcast and like trying to pay attention more than just like basking in the hilarity that ensues over 90 minutes. You really pick up on some Canadian accents throughout this thing that I'd never particularly noticed before.
Yeah, so Bill Murray is the name guy in this. And there were 3 other people I recognized from other things. And that was the guy who played Fink. Yeah. It was on like Seinfeld or something like that.
Yeah.
The guy who played Morty was just in stuff when we were kids. Like, he was the attorney, or he was, whatever. He was just a kind of a character actor. And then one of the CITs, the girl who played the nerdy female, she was in stuff.
Okay. As
always, the nerdy female till like 85, and then I think she disappeared. So, but that's really, it's everybody else just kind of into the ether from this movie.
Yeah, there's a couple of names that I recognized. One of the male counselors, I think Matt Craven is the actor's name, that I always see kind of periodically in films. But yeah, Bill Murray is definitely the person who kind of went on, so to speak.
Yeah.
From this thing.
But yeah, I wasn't sure what to expect. You had promised me that it wasn't going to just be like a horny, like Hot Dog the movie or something. And it's kind of funny because between this and Stripes, Bill Murray was in at least 2 movies kind of right out of the gate that were imitated over and over and over, and kind of crisscrossing with camps and schools and other places where people were kind of taken out of their. But yeah, I mean, you end up getting, lots of summer camp movies, of course, but you also can see kind of like, the rich rivals, down the way we've got to get the comeuppance on.
Yeah, I can't remember when I know that Caddyshack is often billed as the slobs versus the snobs, and I don't recall when it came out versus when this came out, but this definitely has that feel of the middle class versus the upper class that really, I mean, it's set a tone that exists today, certainly.
Well, I was actually going to say, I'm not sure it does still. That's the weird thing, is everyone wants to identify with being the rich people now.
That's true.
And so, high school movie or whatever, 15 years ago, the clearly, like, wildly wealthy characters in this thing. And it's played kind of, they just don't seem to have the same kind of class division sort of thing going on in movies, at least to the degree that it was just taken for granted that was going to be part of your story back then, as we're punching up. Where we know these people are lording it over us, and so we're going to show them through humor, and which was kind of an old like you hear about like Borscht Belt comedy, like that was kind of the thing, right? It was we're the poor immigrants, and we have to get our one-upmanship, and that shows up in Bugs Bunny and everything else through the entire 20th century.
Yeah. So Caddyshack was 1980.
So this is what Bill Murray was doing between seasons of Saturday Night Live, I guess.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. Take the summer and go film something.
Yeah, I guess that whole Harold Ramis, Bill Murray, Ivan Reitman. I mean, I guess the machine today is now like Judd Apatow, Will Ferrell,
Rogan.
Yeah. And I guess like the Wet Hot American Summer people are kind of feed into that. You have Paul Rudd and all those good guys.
Yeah, but Wet Hot American Summer now is almost like 20 years old. Yeah. I kept kind of thinking about. This time I was trying to, on occasion, think about parallel scenes between Wet Hot American Summer and this movie, and it's kind of there. I think it's more the characters are there more than anything, but definitely the camp setup definitely feels the same. Well, I mean, even the like Wet Hot American Summer plays with the radio thing of like the kid is just talking to himself. You find out like through the entire thing, you think he's got the radio thing like in this, which no summer camp I think really ever had. But it was a nice framing device always for here's what's going on right now. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly at Camp Chrysalis in the Central Texas. There were not radio announcements. We all were woken up by the counselor and frog marched into the dining hall to go have fake eggs.
Oh God. One thing that I mean, listeners may start to piece together is a lot of the movies that make their way into my canon or that I'll kind of propose to you, and I think is really exemplary here, is I feel like this is a very hopeful movie. I think it feels very summery. Like for me, kind of being a little bit of a shy kid growing up, the summer always felt like the point where maybe you can not necessarily reinvent yourself, but it was like this pause from who you were to who you can be the next year. And I really like in this thing, I mean, I really feel like you get the impression that Rudy is different from the beginning of the summer to the end of the summer. I really like the hopefulness that really is all throughout this movie. I mean, when you watch it, and watching it this time around, I was really kind of impressed and felt good. Like, there's the point early where Rudy he's about to leave camp.
Yeah.
And I love all the signs, like, as you may remember, listeners, from the RoboCop episode, I love to look at the background in movies. Set design, production design makes up so much. But I love, and I'm sure they're probably real here, is all of the background posters, and that, like, you can see America for $69. Go from Canada to Florida for $300, you know. But I'm getting a little derailed here, but in that scene, I really like and appreciate, and it kind of goes to the gentleness of this movie, that the Bill Murray character recognizes that Rudy doesn't quite fit in, and it's like, you know, if you have problems, if you want to talk to anybody, come to me. Like, I'll listen. And it's like a really nice moment and scene to solidify the friendship that these two characters have that kind of carries throughout the rest of the movie. And I think that's the kind of thing that you miss in every single movie that's tried to imitate this. Like, they forget about that.
Yeah.
They move on to, even though the scene is very funny, the pants on the flagpole, they kind of zero in on, they're going to sneak off to the girls' like camp. They're going to spy on the girls. I think this movie does a really, really smart thing and a really good job of taking its time on the sweet moments. Like when the CITs go off on their little overnight trip. I mean, it's a decent chunk of the movie that doesn't mean anything other than to kind of move these characters forward. And the songs are great. Like, every now and then I'll try to pull up the soundtrack to this movie whenever summer starts. I'll pull up the soundtrack, especially the theme song, and like these sweet little songs. It's I guess what I'm getting at here is it's a very sweet movie. I really appreciate it, and I think that what this movie it's interesting to see what the imitators, no matter how good they are, took from this movie and capitalized on.
Yeah. I don't disagree. It's flirty, you know, hormonally charged teens, but they also play it as this is going both ways.
Yeah.
The guys aren't necessarily, you know, standing around going, "Oh, I'm gonna, you know, touch so and so's boobies this summer." You know?
And like the big, I feel like one of the quintessential scenes is when they're on this trip and Fink and Spaz are talking about how Spaz goes into the woods with Jackie and they hold hands in the dark, and it's this sweet little moment. It's not like, you know, Fink is always like, "Oh, did you see the way she looks at you? She wants it."
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, they are pleased as punch that Spaz holds hands with Jackie in the woods. I mean,
which is, and honestly, probably much more realistic for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, all right, well, that's progress. That's progress. I mean, I remember those conversations.
Yeah, yeah.
Some of them I was a little like, it's taken a little long. I'm a little sad. But you don't say that to your friend.
No.
But yeah, it you know, because it's not people kind of picking on each other and they kind of other the rich people so that, you know, you still have your villains. Yeah, I mean, and it really does just kind of work, and I'm a little surprised it's not a more discussed movie now. So some of it doesn't age perfectly, and I don't think the movie does anything necessarily wrong. There is I guess supposed to be flirty scene between Roxanne and Bill Murray that now would just be like have the internet up in arms.
Yeah.
But it also you couldn't have. I don't know if you can have scenes anymore between like an older camp counselor letting a young guy hang out in his bunk anymore. I mean, that would be deeply frowned upon at a real camp at this point. And I don't know how, you know, the reality of that situation, you know, back in the day, but that wasn't something that when I was at Camp Chrysalis, you know, you were in your cabin unless you were at the nurse's shack, you know, after lights out, sir.
Yeah, but I mean, for what it's worth, Roxanne gets a lot of really good lines.
I'm nodding. I'm agreeing with Justin. Yeah.
I mean, definitely Bill Murray in I think the scene we're talking about, he's definitely physical with her, but it's, I don't know, and in this day and age I try to be sensitive while at the same time thinking about the mindset of when the movies were made that I like and grew up on. But I mean, this one feels, even with those scenes, it does not feel as harsh as what you think they would have been for that time. And I don't know, I've seen this movie a million times, so it might have struck you differently, but kind of ingrained with this and knowing how it ends up. And even at the end of the movie, he's proposing they live together in kind of a sweet way, in that they both know that they're kind of moving their relationship to something that neither one of them are terribly comfortable with, and that they've never done it before.
Yeah.
So it to me, maybe knowing where that relationship ends up, and makes the earlier stuff feel a little lighter. Yeah,
I mean, it's definitely intended as a pulling the pig's tail,
yeah,
sort of thing. So, I'm old enough and been around long enough to understand the context from which it sprung, and it didn't bother me so much as I was just like, oh well, not in 2021, man. You'd have to find a very different way to do that scene. But yeah, no, I mean, I do think it. I mean, I did not go to camp straight through for a full month or 2 months or whatever this was supposed to have taken place over. But you know, it felt pretty genuine to me, especially the little kids who were there. Just kind of like, they're just lost, man. Like their parents have just basically dumped them for the summer.
Yeah, it's funny. So Sydney is 8, and they talk about kids being 6 years old going to this camp, and maybe it's just a regional thing, but I certainly can't imagine Sydney having done well at 6 years old. At this, I don't know if it's just...
Well, I mean, I remember kids going off to camp and having to come back. You know, I remember, you know, and this is at 10, 11, 12. who had tummy aches because they weren't at home, who'd never quite adjusted in quite the same way.
But I will say, this summer, Sydney went to a camp out on Bastrop. And at the end of the camp, she was telling us the proper way to unsheath a knife. He's like, oh, you do not pull the knife out of the sheath. You remove the sheath from the knife. And that way, there's less chance of cutting yourself or anyone else. It's like, oh, I guess that makes sense. And she would demonstrate. Hold the knife, remove the sheath. Hold the knife, remove the sheath.
I have a lot of questions about this camp now, but I don't want to derail.
No. She's also really good at archery, too.
So. Oh, excellent.
Stabbing from close range or afar is apparently well within her wheelhouse.
We never had things like the Olympiad at the camps I went to. There wasn't any the other camp's going to come over and we're going to have a rivalry time. I don't know if there were other camps around our camp, but mostly
there were the Presbyterians on the other side.
Presbyterians, I'll never let it go. But we did have a big social. There was always a dance, which was always weird because you really hadn't even been, since it was a week, you didn't even really have time enough to build up a crush on anybody to really worry about it. You were more of if you knew a girl's name, you're like, dance awkwardly in front of counselors? And then I remember the year they brought their first CD player, and we had to dance 30 feet away or it would skip because they didn't have skip resistance yet. So, yeah. I think someone eventually brought out a boombox at the tape deck, and we just had to listen to Don Henley or something. But yeah, they did have that. That was definitely a very real thing. And I did go to drama camp for 7 weeks. That was right before college. That was between junior. That was when I decided I wasn't going to major in drama. And we had the dance and social things and all that there. But in between we were acting. We were also all 17 years old at that point, so it was very different. But the counselors were definitely up to shenanigans there, and we heard about it because they all got in trouble.
Yeah,
so
funny.
Yeah, when your counselors are all walking around looking very sad one day, and then the head of the thing gets up and goes, "Your counselors have all been very bad."
Oh, no.
Oh, man. So, they were college kids. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, usually they'd go to post ads at ACC and UT and Texas State and stuff, and that's where they'd recruit the counselors from. It was all kind of local college kids.
Yeah, that checks out. That makes sense.
This is your movie, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to decipher the little notes that I wrote while making this movie.
This one just says pants.
I wrote the word zero and then something that looks like the word fart.
I don't know.
I don't know either. It's completely lost on me. But earlier tonight, while I was eating dinner with my family, I was thinking about meatballs, and you're running with meatballs, homemade meatballs.
Yeah.
And I looked on your blog, and there was nothing there about ruining a man's business.
No. I'll look it up. I'll see if I can find it. So the story he's referring to is in 2006, we moved back to Austin, and we went to a place whose name escapes me now because
I truly tried to find it, and I tried to think about it, and it's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah. we called it, and the reason I can't remember is because I called it Clam Bake Jake. I can't remember the name of the real place. And so, this is 2006. Like, blogs are still, they're just past being new. But Google and all that had become like a real presence at this point. And someone had built this sprawling Italian restaurant with like all these different stations you could go to, and it had the craziest seating thing I'd ever seen. It was like ready to seat like 1,000 people like at a time. I would say, I'm not exaggerating when I say it probably could have sat 300 people at a time. And then in every single dining room, of which had very long tables, there were like these dashboards and stuff where you could see where an ass was in every seat. So, anyway, we walk in, and the first thing I start just yelling at my wife and brother of like, go for the meat. They're gonna try and fill you up with bread and pasta. Don't do it.
Don't
just
fall
eat
for
meat.
that.
Yeah. So I just ate like piles of meat while we were there, and there were homemade meatballs, and I decided that was the funniest thing. I was like, does somebody live here? Is somebody like sitting in the back? So I write this like, haha, I'm so funny post that's like, 2 pages long, and I go to work the next day, and my wife, the lovely Jamie, is waiting for me when I get home, and she's like, the owner of Clam Bake Jake's has called the house. And I was like, what? And she's like, he saw the post and he wants to talk to you directly. And I was like, I am not doing that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not talking to anyone on the phone. I was like, that's psychotic. And she's like, he's really mad. And I'm like, well, that's weird. I'm just a dude on the internet. And so finally he emailed me, because I did have my email address. I think Jamie said, like, here's his email address. He'll talk to you over email. And he was a local restaurateur. This was like his like 5th place. I can't remember what other places he owned. And he he starts yelling at me about how I'm going to get his restaurant shut down, and that's going to be, because this is pre-Yelp. Like, Yelp, if it existed, was maybe in its infancy. And he was very angry with me, and I was like, look, man, this was my legitimate experience at your restaurant. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm not gonna, like, I don't want to lie, So he proposes that he'll feed, like, I can't remember what the number he threw out there, because keep in mind, this is an all-you-can-eat buffet. He says, I'll feed like 10 of your friends. Bring 10 of your friends. And I was like, I'm not roping my friends into this psychotic mess. I'm not going to do that. So, I will not be bought off. And
I would have been bought off.
Well, now I would. Now I'd be like, it's all good. We're friends. Come with me. We're all going to go eat a huge free meal, and we're going to gorge ourselves, and hopefully there will be wine. That I would have foreseen that. So, anyway, he sends me pictures of the people working, like, all smiling. And
I can see it.
Yeah,
I can see it today.
Here's a guy making the meatballs. They are made in the house, where they're house made or whatever. And I was like, well, you need to call them house made, not homemade, unless your people are living in the kitchen, because that's scary. So we went back and forth for a while. He was finally satisfied, and because I finally agreed, for the sake of the staff, to take the post down, and I set it in draft, and then I reposted it, I want to say, like 4 years ago. But I think it's at the old blog. It's not at Signal Watch. I think it's at League of Melbotus, which is probably why you couldn't find it.
Got it. That makes sense.
So, I'll definitely link to it in this post. But that is my Meatballs story. And the place went out of business within like a year or two. It did not last very long.
It's called Johnny Meatballs.
Johnny Meatballs. It was called like Johnny something.
Yeah, it definitely was.
And now it's a whole bunch of different things. They got smart and said, this is an ice cream shop, this is a coffee shop, this is a pizza shop. So, and it's doing very well over there.
Yes, I remember how absolutely ridiculous this entire experience was. And I remember Jamie saying, like, this guy called the house.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
Yeah. I mean, the internet made the world very small, very fast. It was like a small town for a while. And I have had conversations with comic writers. I once had Mecco, who wrote the Disco Star Wars, comment on a blog post, which has been lost to Halo Scan. And I'm so mad that I lost that comment. But he was very angry at George Lucas. It was a weird day. I've had authors comment on stuff that, so you never know. You never know. I think in this day and age, they wouldn't worry about a blog post of someone making fun of their restaurant. They'd know to leave well enough alone.
Yeah.
And frankly, now I'd probably go scorched earth or take the free meal and shut up.
Yeah. So, what I'm getting from this is Ryan, number one, Paris, number two, as far as influencers on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wish I'm going to find out this guy died. I'm going to have to go look to see what happened with this guy. But it was a weird event. I don't have anything that weird from summer camp. Mostly, I remember being very sweaty all the time, and that you wouldn't poop all week. You wouldn't. And then the minute we would drive in a school bus back from Kerrville or Fredericksburg or wherever we were, and the minute my mom picked me up at the church, the clock was ticking. Like, I was like, I'm back in my comfort zone. The bowels are moving. And I was not alone. You can talk to anyone who went to summer camp. Very few kids pooped at camp.
Well, I'm pretty glad that I never went to summer camp.
You didn't notice. Until the ride home in the car. And then it was, Mom, do not stop for stoplights. We gotta
keep it moving.
Yeah, because things are moving.
Just keep this Caprice moving.
With the GMC conversion van, man. And my mom would be like, I want to talk to my friends because I'm seeing all my friends as I'm picking you up at church. I'm like, can't. Gotta throw the bag in the car and we got to go.
Hilarious. Yeah. That's funny.
I'm trying to think about what else about camp, but we had a lake, sort of. The ghost story thing was always a big thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would imagine, because of this movie, there's a couple of people who I can end a sentence with, I heard he had a hook on his foot.
So I'd heard that reference before, maybe by you, and I never knew what people were talking about.
Could be, yeah. That's a little, like, elbow nudge to...
So I first heard that story not at camp. I heard it during driving training at Austin Driving School on Harryman Road in Round Rock.
Yeah. Okay.
That was the story that my driving instructor told me. He's like, you know why this is called Harryman Road? And then told that story, and that's the Harryman. So
not the Hook Man.
Yeah.
But the Harryman.
Yeah.
So, my great aunt used to live right off of Harryman Road. So we traveled Harryman Road once a month or so.
Yeah, Harryman Road is a road in Round Rock, which is north of Austin, and it's back in at that period, the trees basically crossed over, so you were driving through a tunnel of tree branches, and so the whole idea was like, there was teenagers tried to park on this road and neck, and there was a hook on the door and blah blah blah. The story at my camp was the story of the Goat Man, which the last time I told it, the same people I told it to the next time I saw them, because I was very, very drunk when I told them the story of the Goat Man. They said that was the worst story I've ever heard in my life. And I thought it was a great story, and apparently it's not. But yeah, you got to at summer camp. You can't do it to the little kids. What they would do with the Goat Man is they would tell you a version that was so fantastical at Camp Chrysalis, when you first heard it, you'd be like, well, it's bunk, I'll be able to sleep tonight. Then the last time I was there after 8th grade, that's correct. Yes. Because we went for confirmation camp, so I know it was after 8th grade. They told the air quotes real version, which was about a psychotic guy escaping into the woods around Fredericksburg, and not a mystical goat man with hoofs and horns running around in the woods, who was friend to the children or whatever the initial story was. But yeah, I think every camp has one of those.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there's got to be a little bit of benevolent fear, right? For anybody being away from their parents at the first time. I mean, it's got to be a little. I imagine it's a little frightening, in a way, to be away from your parents. So, maybe you've done a sleepover, but you've never really been away.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. The first time I was away was 4th grade, and honestly, I was so tired, I didn't have time to be scared. I mean, I'm not. I laugh, but it's true. They run you all day long in the sun in Texas, and then go, there's your bunk at 8 o'clock, and you're like, thank you. I'm going to go pass out now. And then you, of course, wake up with the sun and start running again. But I think the biggest difference between that was really there was always church camp. And so there was a lot of stopping for singing and, whatever other churchy sort of things we were doing. And also, the singing was not necessarily fun songs. It was here's some gospel stuff that we're going to sing. But because it was Lutherans really leaned into hippie music, and it just stuck through the entire 80s and 90s. And so we're singing One Tin Soldier and stuff as part of our Lutheran hymnal thing. It was very weird.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I grew up Catholic, but very on the outside of it. We would go to church on Saturday, so we could sleep in on Sunday.
Saturday night?
Yeah. Early Saturday. Early enough to do something in the evening.
Oh, okay.
But get your churching out of the way.
Right. Oh, man. Karen Steens had us up with the chickens, and we were having our Cheerios and being chased around to get ready and look presentable in our church pants.
Yeah, I definitely think that Sunday church was, one, a little dressier, but two, you could go and get donuts. You could pay your quarter to the church to get a donut.
Yeah.
There was none of that on Saturday, and I remember us arriving a little late, standing in the back and leaving a little early. So I think after the Eucharist, it was okay, we got
God's
it.
Got
we
it.
got it.
God knows we mean it. We can go now.
He knows we're here.
Yeah. No, and you went to a beautiful church at that.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
Yeah. I'm always curious these days with because it was kind of in the woods, sort of.
Yeah.
With the sprawl, I think there's a Home Depot or a frozen custard shop.
Nothing is really going to enhance that Station of the Crosses you guys had, the side of a Home Depot.
Yeah, if you can see a nice, pleasing orange in the distance, the Weeping Jesus.
Yeah.
And pneumatic tools. Well,
vehicles backing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that whole area has changed quite a bit, but yeah, I mean, it's. I had one friend who would go to in high school, and she would go to a all girls all summer or 6 weeks of summer every summer camp, and she talked about it and relentlessly, and finally I was kind of that's kind of a rich kid thing. There's a reason the rest of us aren't taken off and disappearing for weeks at a time. And she was like, nuh-uh. And I was like, no, that's a kind of we're all pretty well to do in this neighborhood, But your family might be doing better than the rest of everybody else's who can't afford to send their kids off to the very special girls camp.
Yeah, it's interesting. In the beginning of that movie, when the reporter is at the Kmart, talking about Camp Mohawk and it being $1,000 a week. Granted, this is $1,979 a week. Yeah. But when I think about what some of Sydney's stuff costs these days, it's pretty amazing. And at the same time, I think one, I can't afford it, and two, a week of silence is really like you can't put a price on it. So maybe it's worth it.
I mean, the idea of what I've heard of the summer camps, out of New York was that, you're getting the kids, because New York was, no air conditioning, just miserable in the summer and swampy and the rest of it. Go get them in the fresh air, all summer. But there is a big component of mommy and daddy need some downtime.
Yeah.
Like, you're not in school. We need to not have you here all the time asking questions. All your children are wonderful. They're a blessing.
Yeah, they are. They are.
But
children are the future.
Yes. But yeah, that was a great sequence, and I was trying to run the numbers in my head of like, is that now $3,000 a week, or would that be $4,000 a week?
Yeah, it's got to be 4-ish, 4 or 5. Some of that stuff is
and I'm sure some
expensive.
of those camps are in the Catskills, or I'm sure still super expensive. I don't know what Pine Cove and Chrysalis cost. Not a lot, or where I wouldn't have been going. So, and you still had to pay for your own popsicles at the ice cream shack. Yeah. Bring your $5 bill with you, so you could have one every day.
Well, the other day we went on a bike ride from our house to Shipley's Donuts across.
Oh, I know where the Shipley's is, out in this neck of the woods.
Yeah. And I was trying to explain Woody's Goodies.
Oh, yeah.
And this idea of bringing your own money for your little treats.
How do kids eat now at school?
So for Sydney, we just pack all of our stuff.
Oh. Yeah, no, Justin and I went to elementary school together, frighteningly enough. And our mascot was Woody, the Spicewood Panther,
which was the Pink Panther. Which I wonder if
it's not anymore.
Okay,
Marshall, who also does this podcast, children go to Spicewood. He lives right next to Spicewood.
Oh,
so
I always imagined him elsewhere.
He's a man on the move, so it makes sense. But no, he's in that old neighborhood. So I'm not going to say which street, because that seems like not a good idea on a podcast, but he's over there. But yeah, they had this little snack bar thing, like after you'd had your whatever the hot lunch was, which was what I did most of the time. You would have I think it was like 50 cents for the little thing of cheese and crackers with the red stick to spread the cheese on the crackers.
A Nutty Buddy on Fridays.
Man, yeah. Go back and sit with Sam Murphy and kick back with our cheese and crackers and Nutty Buddies. That was a good lunch in 5th grade.
What a time.
We were living like kings. We didn't know it. But it's a fantastic film. I will probably be trying to show it to Jamie before the summer's out.
Yeah. It's different. I mean, I don't know if you. I got the impression maybe you thought it was different when we were talking about it than it is.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like a horny college movie.
Yeah, it's surprisingly...
so a while back, I went through a thing of, I've never seen Porky's, I've never seen Screwballs, I've never seen,
Hot
those
Dog.
movies.
Or hamburger.
I'd seen hamburger and hot dog. I'll be honest.
They already made hamburger. What do we got to make next? Hot dog, sir? Yeah, we're going to make hot dog. Give that intern a raise.
So, Porky's is really bad, as it turns out.
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, Bob Clark is pretty great. Mm-hmm. I mean, the man has... I've never seen it. But Black Christmas is great.
Christmas Story. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Porky's was not my cup of tea. It did have a few funny things, and one of which was Kim Cattrall's big scene in that. And we are...
So there's... Maybe you can hear the dogs.
Yeah.
Dear listeners.
We are recording outside.
Yeah, there's fighting dogs, and one of the owners is trying to quell the dogs, and it's not...
It seems to be escalating the situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so I thought it was going to be more like that. And Screwballs, by the way, was pretty much unwatchable. Like, I started doing, like, math or something for work while I was watching Screwballs. That's, like, how bad it was.
Oh.
So...
Well, math is terrible.
Excel's made it all a lot better for me. So yeah, so I thought, like, well, it's got Bill Murray, it'll be better than that. But I thought it's just a movie no one had really talked to me about. So I think if anyone did, they're like, yeah, it's a summer camp movie. And I was like, all right, well, I've seen those. I'm good. The finest summer camp movie to me, though, will always be Addams Family Values.
Well, yeah. I mean, it is very good. It's very good. I mean, it definitely benefits from
this movie.
Yeah, and it benefits from having smart writers, right?
Yeah,
I mean, because we would have grown up with this sort of mentality, and then translating that to good old Wednesday.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was funny because I was thinking every time I think about movies like this and think about Stripes, Bill Murray, I always end up thinking about this horrible, horrible movie I watched on TV in like 1988 called Combat Academy, which was a knockoff of Stripes, essentially, except it was a kid sent to a private school, and it was that same guy who's in Legend of Billie Jean, and he's in Back to School, and he was in like a slew of things. He's now a big director, I guess, but it's not good. It was absolutely horrible, and it was kind of, for me, honestly, when I started avoiding watching the, like, there are a bunch of ragtag misfits, who are in a controlled situation. I was like, Combat Academy broke me in like 1988 or whatever that was, and so it takes quite a bit for me to... I'm older. It's been years. It's been a few years. A little water under the bridge since then. And like you were saying, it has enough other stuff going on that it's good. So anyway, I don't have anything else to say about it.
I don't think I do either. I mean, if you haven't seen Meatballs, you should see it. I mean, I'm always a little surprised to see on Letterboxd or some of these, like, Joe Schmo review sites where it doesn't get better reviews. And I'm always interested to try to gauge the age of the people who are reviewing Meatballs who don't give it a good review. So
I would bet, if I was a betting man, that a lot of those people want the horny, wacky, don't give me anything else.
Yeah. Like,
if they're looking for the apex of that, and Meatballs is doing something completely different. Yeah.
It's definitely... Pardon me.
Now, I don't know why the movie is called Meatballs, I will be honest.
No, Sydney asked me this morning. I told her we watched a movie called Meatballs, and she said, why is it called Meatballs? Perhaps, like she asked you earlier, why it's called Kryptonite.
Yeah.
And all I could say was, well, there's a scene where these people are playing tennis, and somebody calls another person a meatball.
Yeah.
And that's it. And there's a song, I think...
by Rick Dees, no less.
Yeah, no kidding. And the soundtrack is fun of this movie. It's good. You should definitely put it on your summer playlist if you haven't already. But yeah, there's no good reason to call it Meatballs.
My suspicion is there was going to be more meatball name calling. Rick Dees wrote a song for it, and it didn't actually end up in the movie. And but we've got a song by Rick Dees, and it's 1979. We've got to call it Meatballs now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Rick Dees has done all this work for nothing.
You don't want to piss off Rick Dees.
He's Disco Duck, man. You do not. All right, man. Well, thank you so much. So Justin set up the film the show in his backyard, and we had a lovely setup, and he's been giving me lots of bubbly water to keep me hydrated in the Texas heat. So thank you so much. It's been a lovely evening.
Yeah, it has been. Thank you.
They know it all, but don't know where it stands. Talk a winning game, but they can't hold a bat. They strut around with all the macho charm. When the pressure's on, they run to mama's arms.
That about wraps it up for this edition of The Signal Watch, a production of the League of Melbotus. Thanks for sticking with us. If you enjoyed the podcast, we invite you to drop on by the Signal Watch blog, where you'll find write-ups of a wide variety of movies and more. We'd love to hear from you, so find us online and let us know what you think. Whether you prefer email, blog comments, or social media, we'll be happy to hear from you. We'll be back soon with more exceedingly high-quality content. So, until next time, God damn it, babies, you've got to be kind.